The unmistakable scent of horse manure filled the entire living room when Leo answered my call. Through the speaker, I could hear his nervous laugh as he explained to his in-laws that his problematic mother was on the line. I smiled, imagining his wife's screams when she discovered the special gift that Shadow, my favorite horse, had left right on top of her Louis Vuitton suitcase. I never thought that, at 66 years old, I'd become an expert in rural revenge, but my son forced my hand. But before I go on, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and drop a comment below. Where are you watching this video from? We love to see how far our stories travel. It all started 3 days ago. I was living peacefully on the ranch I built with Walter, my late husband. After 30 years working as a nurse in Chicago, I had finally retired and moved to our 100-acre property in Montana. Our dream made real. Walter had been gone for a year and a half after a long, hard fight with cancer. He didn't get to enjoy our retirement for long, but he made me promise I would live it to the fullest for both of us. The ranch was my sanctuary. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to care for the animals. 3 horses, a dozen hens, and a temperamental rooster named Lucifer, a name given to him by Walter, who always said that bird had the devil in him. My days were filled with tending the vegetable garden, reading on the porch, and occasional visits from the neighbors. It was a simple life, but a deeply satisfying one. Until that Tuesday phone call. "Mom, we have news." Leo's voice sounded cheerful over the phone. My heart warmed instantly. It had been almost 6 months since I'd seen my only son. "Hi, sweetie. It's so good to hear from you. Is everything okay?" "Better than okay. Chloe and I are coming to visit you at the ranch. We'll be there on Friday." "That's wonderful," I replied, genuinely happy. "I'll get the guest room ready and make that—" "Actually," he interrupted me, "it won't just be the 2 of us. Chloe's parents are coming, and her 2 sisters, and their husbands. Oh, and her cousins from Denver." My stomach tightened. "How many people, Leo?" "10 in total." "But don't worry. You have plenty of space in that huge house." I took a deep breath. The main house had 4 bedrooms, but 2 of them were basically storage rooms at the moment I would have to reorganize everything in less than 3 days. "Son, I don't know if I can get everything ready for that many people so quickly. The extra rooms are full of—" "Then empty them," he cut in. His voice shifted to that condescending tone he'd adopted ever since he became a finance manager at some big firm. "What's the problem? What else do you have to do out there besides feed chickens? We'll need the best rooms, of course. Chloe's parents can stay in your master bedroom." "My room? But where will I sleep? The living room sofa is fine. It's just for a weekend. Dad would have loved to see the family gathered at that ranch. That's why he bought the place, right? For family gatherings." The manipulation was so blatant I almost laughed. How dare he invoke Walter's memory to justify this invasion? Walter, who valued respect and consideration above all else. "Leo, your father would never, ever kick me out of my own bedroom to accommodate visitors I don't even know, Mom. It's all decided. Chloe already posted about it on Instagram. Her followers are so excited to see the authentic country experience. So if you can't handle this, maybe you should consider moving back to the city. A woman your age, alone on a ranch, frankly, it's not very practical." Before I could answer, he delivered the final blow. "If you don't like it, you can sleep in the barn with the horses. They seem to be your only concern anyway. We'll be there Friday night." The line went dead. He had hung up on me. I stood motionless in the kitchen, feeling the weight of his arrogance and thoughtlessness. The pain morphed into outrage, and the outrage into something else, something creative. It was then that Shadow neighed from the stable, as if he sensed my turmoil. I looked at him through the window, all 1,300 pounds of his gleaming black attitude, and something clicked in my mind. A smile spread across my face. "You know what, Shadow?" I murmured. "I think you're right. They want an authentic rural experience? We'll give them an authentic rural experience." I spent that afternoon in Walter's old office making calls. First to Sam and Ben, my handymen who lived in the small cottage near the creek and had been looking after the property for over 10 years. They understood exactly what I wanted to do. "Ms. Eleanor," Sam said when I explained my plan, his sun-weathered face breaking into a mischievous grin. "It will be our absolute pleasure." Then I called my best friend, Maggie, who lived in Jackson Hole. "Pack a bag, darling," she said immediately. The Imperial Mountain Spa has a special this week. We're going to watch the whole show from there. The next 2 days were a whirlwind of meticulously planned preparations. I stripped all the quality bedding from the rooms, replacing the Egyptian cotton with scratchy blankets from the emergency supplies in the barn. The good towels went into storage, replaced by others that felt like sandpaper. I adjusted the thermostat in the guest wing to a cozy 40 degrees at night and 90 during the day, temperature control issues, I'd claim. Old ranch houses, you know, but the pièce de résistance required precise timing. On Thursday night, as I installed the last of the tiny cameras, it's amazing what you can get with overnight delivery from Amazon, I stood in the living room visualizing the scene. The Persian rugs I paid a fortune for, the restored antique furniture, the windows overlooking the mountains. "This is going to be perfect," I whispered to Walter's photo on the mantelpiece. "You always said Leo needed to learn about consequences." Before leaving for Jackson Hole on Friday morning, Sam and Ben helped me with the final touches. We led Shadow, Starlight, and Thunder into the house. They were surprisingly cooperative, probably sensing the mischief in the air. A bucket of oats in the kitchen, a bit of hay in the living room, and nature would take its course. The internet modem went into the safe. The swimming pool gained a new ecosystem of algae I'd been cultivating in buckets for days. The local pet store was happy to contribute a few dozen tadpoles and noisy frogs. As I drove away from my ranch at dawn, my tablet already showing the live camera feeds, I felt lighter than I had in years. Behind me, Shadow was investigating the living room sofa. Ahead of me were Jackson Hole, Maggie, and a front row seat to the show of a lifetime. The authentic rural life Leo was so eager to show his wife's family was just beginning. The hotel in Jackson Hole was the polar opposite of what my son expected me to be experiencing that weekend. As Maggie and I settled into a luxury suite, complete with room service and perfectly regulated air conditioning, I watched the convoy of cars arrive at my property on the tablet. "Look at your daughter-in-law's outfit," Maggie commented, pointing at the screen where Chloe was getting out of the car. "Are those Louboutins? On a ranch?" I nodded, watching my daughter-in-law teeter on the gravel in 5-inch heels. A $1,000 pair of shoes, about to meet authentic Montana mud. The parade of cars was impressive. 2 luxury SUVs and a Mercedes convertible carrying Chloe's parents. All immaculate city vehicles about to face their worst nightmare. I counted the people on the cameras. Chloe's sisters, Ashley and Brooke, their husbands, Kevin and Jason, the Denver cousins, Mark and Sarah, and her parents, Richard and Victoria, who emerged from the Mercedes wearing all white clothes on a ranch. The urban naivety was boundless. "Eleanor, you are an absolute genius," Maggie whispered as we watched them approach the front door. Leo struggled with the spare key I'd mentioned, the one under the ceramic frog Walter had made in his art phase. For a moment, I felt a pang of nostalgia. But then, I heard Chloe's voice through the external camera's audio. "Oh my God, what is that stench? How does your mother stand living here?" The nostalgia vanished instantly. Leo opened the door, and the magic began. The shriek that erupted from Chloe could have been heard for miles. Shadow was strategically positioned in the entryway, swishing his majestic tail as he deposited a fresh pile of manure on my Persian rug. But it was Starlight standing in the living room as if she owned the place and calmly chewing on Chloe's Hermes scarf that had fallen from her luggage, who truly completed the scene. What the hell is this? Leo's professional composure disappeared in an instant. Thunder chose that moment to wander in from the kitchen, knocking over the ceramic vase Walter had made for our anniversary. On camera, I saw the vase shatter against the hardwood floor, but I felt no remorse. Things are just things. What was happening here was priceless. Are they supposed to be in here? Ashley suggested timidly, pressing herself against the wall as Thunder investigated her designer handbag with his massive nose. "Horses don't belong in houses!" Victoria shrieked, her white linen already sporting suspicious brown smudges from brushing against the wall where Shadow had been rubbing himself all morning. Leo grabbed his phone, frantically calling me. I let it ring 3 times before answering, making my voice sound breathless. "Hello, son. Did you get there okay? Mom, there are horses in the house." "What?" I gasped, pressing a hand to my chest dramatically, though he couldn't see me. Maggie had to cover her mouth to keep from laughing. "That's impossible. They must have escaped from the pasture. Oh my goodness. Sam and Ben are visiting family in Billings this weekend. You'll have to get them out yourself. How am I supposed to—" "Mom, they're destroying everything. Just lead them outside, sweetie. There are halters and ropes in the barn. They're as gentle as kittens. I'm so sorry, but I'm in Jackson Hole for a doctor's appointment. My arthritis, you know. I'll be back Sunday night." "Sunday? Mom, you can't." "Oh, the doctor is calling for me. Love you." I hung up and put the phone on airplane mode. Maggie and I toasted with champagne as we watched the chaos unfold. The next 3 hours were better than any reality show. Jason, trying to play the hero, grabbed Shadow's mane to guide him outside the horse, offended by such familiarity, promptly sneezed all over his Armani shirt. Kevin tried to shoo Starlight away with a broom, but she interpreted it as a game and chased him around the coffee table until he scrambled onto the sofa, screaming like a child. But the climax of the afternoon came when Mark discovered the pool. "At least we can go for a swim," he announced, already taking off his shirt as he headed for the patio doors. Maggie and I leaned in with anticipation. The scream when he saw the frog-infested swamp that had been my pristine pool was so high-pitched that Thunder, inside the house, neighed in response. The frogs were in full vocal swing, creating a symphony that would make Beethoven weep. The smell, I imagined, was spectacular. "This is insane," Sarah lamented, trying to find a cell signal while dodging horse droppings. "There's no Wi-Fi, no phone service. How are we supposed to—" Chloe, meanwhile, had locked herself in the downstairs bathroom, sobbing dramatically after finding horse crap in her purse, while Leo pounded on the door, begging her to come out and help. Victoria was on her phone, pacing in circles on the porch, apparently trying to book hotel rooms. "Good luck with that," I muttered, knowing the nearest decent hotel was 2 hours away and there was a rodeo in town this weekend. Everything would be booked solid. As the sun began to set, the family managed to corner the horses on the back deck, but couldn't figure out how to get them down the steps and back to the pasture. The animals, clever creatures that they were, had discovered the outdoor furniture cushions and were having a great time ripping them to shreds. Ashley and Brooke had barricaded themselves in one of the guest rooms, but I knew what was coming. The thermostat had kicked on, dropping the temperature to the programmed 40 degrees. Sure enough, within an hour, they emerged wrapped in the scratchy blankets, complaining about the cold. "There are no extra blankets anywhere," Brooke whined, "and these smell like wet dog." That was because they were dog blankets from the local animal shelter's donation box. I had washed them, of course, mostly. By 9 p.m., they had given up on dinner. The horses had managed to get back into the kitchen and eaten most of the groceries they brought. Chloe's sophisticated cheese board was now Shadow's dinner, and the organic vegetables from the supermarket were scattered across the floor like confetti. Leo found the emergency supplies in the pantry: canned beans, instant oatmeal, and powdered milk. The same supplies that sustained me for a week when we first moved to the ranch and a storm cut us off from town. For this group, however, it might as well have been prison food. "I can't believe your mother lives like this," Victoria said, loud enough for the kitchen camera to pick it up clearly. No wonder Walter died. He probably wanted to escape this hell. I felt Maggie's hand squeeze mine. She knew how much Walter had loved this dream. how he had drawn sketches of the ranch on napkins during chemo sessions, making me promise to live our dream even if he couldn't. "That snake," Maggie muttered. "Do you want me to call her favorite restaurant and cancel her reservations for the next month? I know people." I laughed. I actually laughed for the first time in days. "No, darling. The horses are handling that beautifully." As if on cue, Thunder appeared in the background of the kitchen feed, tail raised, depositing his opinion of Victoria directly behind her designer white sneakers. When she took a step back, the squishing sound was perfectly audible through the tablet speakers. The screaming started again. By midnight, they had all retreated to their designated rooms. The cameras showed them huddled under inadequate blankets, still in their clothes, because their luggage was either damaged by the horses or still in the cars, which they were too afraid to go out and get. The automatic rooster alarm I'd installed in the attic was set for 4:30 a.m. The speakers were military grade, used for training exercises. Ben had gotten them from a friend who worked for the Army. "Should we order more champagne?" Maggie asked, already looking at the room service menu. "Absolutely," I replied, watching Leo pace in his room, gesturing furiously as he argued with Chloe in angry whispers. "And maybe some of those chocolate-covered strawberries will need our energy for tomorrow's show." Through the cameras, I saw Leo pick up his laptop, probably trying to find hotels or figure out how to call a large animal removal service. But without Wi-Fi, that expensive MacBook was just a very pretty paperweight. I smiled, thinking of the note I had left in the kitchen, tucked under the coffee maker they would inevitably find in the morning. "Welcome to authentic rural life. Remember, early to bed, early to rise. The rooster crows at 4:30 a.m. Feeding time is at 5 a.m. Enjoy your stay, Mom." The next day, they would discover the chore chart I'd prepared, complete with mucking out stables, collecting eggs from my extremely territorial hens, and repairing the fence I had strategically weakened near the pig pen at the Connolly's farm. Neighbors who had some extremely curious and skilled escape artist pigs. That night, while my son learned what his father always knew, that respect isn't inherited, it's earned, I would sleep in a luxury he could never imagine me enjoying. The rooster alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. with the intensity of 1,000 suns. On the tablet screen, I watched Leo jolt out of bed, tangled in the scratchy blanket, his hair defying gravity. The sound was magnificent. Not just one rooster, but a full symphony I had mixed, amplified to concert levels. "What the hell is that?" Chloe shrieked from under her pillow. Maggie had spent the night in my suite, and we were already on our second pot of coffee. Fresh fruit arranged between us as if we were watching a championship final. "Is that the actual volume?" Maggie asked, wincing as Victoria's scream joined the chorus from the next room. "Oh no," I said sweetly. Adjusting my reading glasses, I turned it up a bit. "You know, my hearing isn't what it used to be. I need it loud to wake me up." The system was designed for persistence. Just when someone thought it was over, another rooster would crow. I had programmed it to continue for exactly 37 minutes with random intervals, just enough time to ensure no one would manage to fall back asleep. By 5 a.m., the exhausted group stumbled into the kitchen, looking like extras from a zombie movie. Ashley's hair extensions were an unrecognizable tangle. Kevin still had horse manure on his designer jeans. Mark had given up completely and was wearing one of the scratchy blankets as a cloak. Leo found my note under the coffee maker. His face as he read it was a masterpiece of evolving horror. "Feeding time," Jason read over his shoulder. What feeding? It was then they heard the sounds from outside. My automatic feeders had failed to dispense rations. I had remotely disabled them, which meant 12 hens, Lucifer the rooster, 3 of the Connolly's pigs who had mysteriously found their way through the weakened fence during the night, and my 3 horses were all gathering near the house, voicing their displeasure. The chickens were the loudest. I had specifically chosen the most temperamental breeds, including Lucifer, who had won 3 most aggressive bird competitions at the county fair. "We're not farmers," Brooke lamented. her day-old mascara streaking down her cheeks. "This is insane." "Just ignore them," Chloe commanded, trying to maintain some authority. "We're going into town for breakfast." Leo's phone GPS informed them that town was a 40-minute drive away. One way. "I found instant coffee," Sarah announced, holding up the canister of decaf I had left in a prominent spot. They wouldn't find the real coffee I had hidden behind the cans of corn. While they struggled with the ancient percolator I had substituted for my espresso machine, which was carefully stored in the guest room, now serving as a storage unit, the animals got louder. Shadow discovered he could bang his hoof on the porch, creating a rhythmic boom that echoed across the property. The pigs had found the patio furniture and were enthusiastically re-landscaping the outdoor area. But Lucifer, he had figured out he could fly high enough to land on the kitchen windowsill. The face-to-face encounter between Chloe and Lucifer through the glass was cinematic. She screamed. He crowed back. She threw the instant coffee at the window. He pecked at the glass with increasing vigor. "We have to feed them to make them stop," Leo finally admitted, already looking defeated, and it wasn't even 6 a.m. yet. "You guys feed those things," Victoria announced, settling imperiously into a kitchen chair that immediately wobbled. I had loosened one leg just enough to be irritating, but not dangerous. "Your mother is right," Chloe said. "You're the man, Leo. You and the other guys handle this." I watched Leo's jaw tighten. Walter would have already been outside, animals fed, probably riding Thunder through the pasture. My husband had grown up on a ranch in rural Wyoming, something Leo was always ashamed of, preferring to tell people his father was an agricultural consultant. The men ventured outside as if entering a war zone. On the external cameras, I watched Kevin immediately step in a fresh pile of manure. Jason tried to open the feed shed, but jumped back screaming when several mice scurried out. They had moved in after I forgot to properly store the feed a few days prior. But the best moment came when Mark approached the hen house with the feed bucket. Lucifer, defender of his territory, launched himself at the poor guy with the fury of a feathered missile. The bucket flew into the air, feed scattered everywhere, and suddenly it was total chaos. Chickens running in every direction, pigs charging from the yard, and the horses trotting over to investigate the commotion. Leo tried to maintain order, shouting commands as if he were still in his Chicago boardroom. But farm animals don't respond to corporate strategies. Thunder, in particular, seemed to take offense at Leo's tone and expressed his displeasure by knocking him right into the water trough. Inside the house, the women were faring no better. The kitchen sink had developed a mysterious leak, courtesy of Ben. The stove took an eternity to heat up. I had adjusted the gas flow, and every drawer they opened seemed to contain something unexpected. Mouse traps, rubber snakes, to scare away the real ones, of course, or my collection of veterinary supplies, including enormous syringes for horse vaccinations. "There's something wrong with these eggs," Ashley shrieked, holding a green egg aloft. "They're spoiled." I laughed so hard Maggie had to pause the feed to let me calm down. My Araucana chickens laid the prettiest blue and green eggs, but city folk always thought something was wrong with them. By 7 a.m., they had managed to produce what could charitably be called breakfast. Burnt instant oatmeal, eggs that Victoria refused to touch, and decaf instant coffee that tasted like broken dreams. The milk was powdered because the fresh milk in the fridge had mysteriously soured. I had adjusted the refrigerator's temperature before I left. "I need a shower," Chloe announced. "A long, hot shower. Oh, sweet delusion." The guest bathroom shower had 2 settings, Arctic water or the surface of the sun. The pressure alternated between a jet capable of stripping paint and a mere trickle, with no in-between. I had also replaced all the soft towels with those camping ones that absorb water, as well as wax paper. Chloe's screams upon finding the ice-cold water were audible even in the kitchen. Then the hot water kicked in, and the screams went up an octave. Ashley tried the other bathroom and discovered the drain was slow. Horsetail hairs that Sam had carefully placed made the shower quickly overflow. Meanwhile, Leo was desperately trying to get online. He found the router, turned it on, but couldn't understand why it wasn't working. He couldn't see that I had changed the password to a 47-character random string and hidden the paper with the password inside the barn, specifically amidst the hay bales in the loft. "Maybe there's Wi-Fi in town," Kevin suggested hopefully. "I'm not driving 40 minutes just for internet," Leo snapped. The stress was clearly getting to him. Perfect. It was then they discovered the next phase of my plan. In the laundry room, I had posted the chore chart I'd titled Daily Ranch Responsibilities in Walter's handwriting, which I had carefully mimicked. It was laminated and looked official, as if it had been there for years. Muck stables, 8 a.m. Collect eggs, 8:30 a.m. Wear protection. Check fences, 9 a.m. Move irrigation pipes, 10 a.m. Feed hens, again, special diet. 11 a.m. Clean pool. Filters, noon. Clean the pool, Jason perked up. Maybe it's not as bad as it looked yesterday. Sweet, naive Jason. The pool in daylight was even worse. The algae had proliferated overnight, turning the water into a green carpet. The frogs had invited friends. Something that might have been a small alligator but was probably just a log, floated menacingly in the deep end. The smell, I imagined, was spectacular. "We are not doing this," Victoria declared firmly. "This is not what we came here for." "What did you come for then?" I muttered at the screen, though she couldn't hear me. "For the free vacation? For the Instagram photos? To survey my property?" Maggie poured more champagne. We had switched from coffee as we watched them argue heatedly. Chloe wanted to leave immediately. Leo insisted they couldn't just abandon the animals. The cousins were already packing their bags. Kevin was Googling, "Can you get diseases from horse manure?" on his phone, using the one bar of signal he could get by standing on 1 foot near the hen house. Then came the moment I was waiting for. Leo, frustrated and desperate, went into my room to look for anything that might help. A different internet password, contact info for Sam and Ben, any salvation. That's when he found the envelope on my dresser, addressed to him in my handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with one paragraph. "Leo, by the time you read this, you will have experienced about 1% of what it really takes to run a ranch. Your father did this every single day for the last 2 years of his life, even during chemo, because he loved this place. This wasn't just my dream, it was ours. If you can't respect that, if you can't respect me, then you don't belong here. The horses know it. The chickens know it. Even the frogs in the pool know it. Do you?" Below, I had placed a photo Walter had taken a month before he died. He was on Thunder, wearing his worn-out cowboy hat, smiling like he'd won the lottery. In the background, barely visible, was me, mucking out stables in rubber boots and his old plaid shirt, laughing at something he'd said. We had been so happy here, so whole. On the camera, I watched my son sink onto my bed, letter in hand, his face cycling through emotions I hadn't seen since Walter's funeral. Shame, recognition, maybe even understanding. But then, Chloe's voice shattered the moment. "Leo, there's something wrong with the toilet. It won't stop making noise." The spell was broken. He folded the letter, put it in his pocket, and went to deal with the mysteriously malfunctioning toilet. A simple valve adjustment that would take 5 seconds for someone who knew what they were doing, hours for someone who didn't. We ordered lunch at the hotel. I had the grilled salmon. Maggie had the filet mignon. My phone showed 17 missed calls from Leo, 23 from Chloe, and 1 text from Victoria that just said, "This is elder abuse. Elder abuse." I laughed so hard the waiter came over to check if we were okay. The sun was setting on their first full day at the ranch. On the cameras, I could see them gathered in the living room, exhausted, filthy, and defeated. They had managed to feed the animals poorly, collect a few eggs, losing 3 to Lucifer's fury, and Kevin had fallen into the pool trying to skim the algae. Now they were eating canned beans and stale crackers for dinner because no one wanted to drive to town, and the horses had gotten into the kitchen again while they were outside, eating everything else edible one more day. I told Maggie, raising my glass. "One more day, and they'll break completely." "You're evil," she said admiringly. "Absolutely evil." "No," I corrected, thinking of Walter, of everything we built, of all the dreams Leo wanted to bulldoze. "I'm just a rancher protecting her land." Sunday dawned with biblical precision. At 3:47 a.m., the Connolly's pigs discovered the hole in the fence had mysteriously widened overnight, thanks to Sam's late-night handiwork. The 3 pigs, led by a massive sow named Gertrude, made their way to my property and discovered the ultimate prize, Richard's Mercedes, with the windows cracked slightly for ventilation. The car alarm at 4 a.m. was spectacular. On camera, I watched Leo stumble outside in his boxers and ridiculously urban slippers, trying to oust 2 pigs from the back seat. Gertrude had made herself comfortable in the driver's seat and was enthusiastically chewing on what appeared to be Victoria's leather handbag. "This can't be happening," he repeated like a mantra. But, oh, it was. The rooster recording joined the symphony at 4:30 a.m., right on schedule. This time, I had added some peacock screams to the mix. The sound was so unholy that Jason literally fell out of bed, taking the scratchy blanket and a table lamp with him. When they all gathered in the kitchen at 5 a.m., they looked like survivors of some apocalyptic disaster. Victoria's white linen had been abandoned for what looked like her husband's golf clothes. From a decade ago, Ashley was wearing a horse blanket as a dress. Mark had completely given up on dignity and was shirtless, despite the morning chill. "We're leaving," Chloe announced today. "Now." "The car," Leo began. "I don't care about the car. Call a rental agency." That's when they discovered the nearest car rental was at the regional airport 2 hours away and was fully booked because of the rodeo. The only local taxi service was a single car driven by a man named Don Joaquin, who was visiting his daughter in Jackson Hole. "We could call an Uber," Brooke suggested hopefully. The glares she received could have curdled milk. Uber. On a ranch in rural Montana, 40 minutes from the nearest town, with no cell service to even make the request, I found real coffee. Jason announced triumphantly, holding up the can of coffee I had hidden. It was the first genuine smile I'd seen on any of them. They were so focused on the coffee that no one questioned why Jason was rummaging behind expired cans from years ago. As they waited for the ancient percolator to work its magic, a new sound joined the morning chorus. Thunder had learned to open the stable door, not to force it, but to literally work the latch with his teeth. He was now leading Starlight and Shadow in what could only be described as a victory parade around the house. "How are they so smart?" Sarah lamented, watching the horses out the window. "They're ranch horses," I told the screen of my tablet, toasting them with my mimosa. "They learn from the best." It was then that nature called literally. The septic system, which I'd had serviced just before I left but had told Leo was acting up lately, chose that moment to back up just enough to make the downstairs bathroom unusable and create an odor that sent everyone fleeing to the porch, where Lucifer was waiting. The rooster had apparently decided the porch was his new kingdom. He had settled on the rocking chair and was defending his territory with the passion of a medieval knight. Kevin tried to reason with him. "You can't reason with a rooster." Lucifer launched himself, wings spread and spurs ready. Kevin's retreat broke speed records. "We need help," Leo finally admitted, grabbing the phone to try calling me again. This time I answered on the first ring, my voice as cheerful as Christmas morning. "Hello, son. How's the ranch?" "Mom, we need you to come back. Everything is falling apart." "Oh dear, what's wrong?" He began listing the disasters, his voice growing more frantic with each item. I made appropriate sounds of concern, while Maggie filmed me with her phone for posterity. "Well," I said when he finally ran out of breath, "Sam and Ben should be back on Monday. They'll know what to do. In the meantime, there's a manual in the barn for all the equipment and systems. Your father wrote everything down." That was true. Walter had meticulously documented everything about the ranch. The manual was 300 pages long. It was laminated, and it was currently stored in the attic under about 1,000 pounds of hay. Good luck finding it Monday? Mom, we can't. Oh, the doctor is calling me. The arthritis specialist. I have to go. I hung up and put the phone on airplane mode again. On the cameras, I watched Leo throw his phone against the porch wall. It bounced and landed in a fresh pile of pig manure. The day progressed as a symphony of chaos. They tried to do laundry, but I had left only the eco-friendly detergent that required precise measurements. The phone had a bit of hot water, which the guest wing didn't have consistently. Ashley's white dress came out a splotchy gray. Brooke's silk blouse completely dissolved. They tried to go to town for supplies, but discovered Leo's car had a flat tire. A roofing nail had accidentally fallen near where he parked. Richard's Mercedes was still occupied by pigs. Gertrude had claimed it as her new home, and the rented SUVs were mysteriously locked with the keys inside. A mystery that would have been solved if they had noticed the curious magpie that had learned to pick up shiny objects. By noon, the temperature in the guest rooms had climbed to the programmed 90 degrees. Without proper ventilation, I had closed the attic vents. It was like a sauna. They opened the windows, which let in the flies that had been attracted by all the animal activity. "There's food in the freezer," Kevin announced, pulling out what looked like a roast. What he didn't know was that it was wild boar meat from last year's hunting season, labeled simply meat in Walter's handwriting. They defrosted it in the microwave, turning it into rubber. The smell alone could have been classified as a chemical weapon. Lunch became crackers, and the green eggs no one wanted to eat. Outside, meanwhile, the animals had organized into what looked like a protest. The horses were at the kitchen window, staring accusatorially. The chickens had figured out they could jump onto the porch roof and were pecking at the upstairs bedroom windows. The pigs had moved on from the Mercedes to explore Leo's car, and one ambitious piglet had somehow gotten into the engine compartment. "This is insane," Victoria kept repeating, fanning herself with a paper plate. Absolutely insane. Then came the rain. The summer storms in the mountains are no joke. This one hit at 2 p.m. with thunder that shook the house. The rain came in sideways, finding every crack in the windows that I had strategically left unsealed. Within minutes, the guest rooms were soaked. But the real discovery came when they tried to close the windows. The old wooden frames, which I had meant to fix, but conveniently forgot to mention, had swollen with the moisture they were stuck open. Mark and Kevin tried to force them, but only succeeded in breaking one completely, leaving a gap the rain happily explored. "We need towels!" Chloe yelled. The camping towels were not going to be much help. They used the scratchy blankets, their clothes, anything absorbent to try to contain the water. Meanwhile, the roof in the laundry room, which had that one tiny leak I had noticed but not mentioned, turned into a waterfall. The chore chart I had so carefully laminated floated like a tiny raft of responsibility. The storm passed after an hour, leaving everything damp and smelling of wet wool. The power flickered and went out. My backup generator, which would have kicked on automatically, was mysteriously out of fuel. I had asked Sam to drain it. The manual start generator in the barn required reading a 16-page instruction manual in Spanish. I had swapped the manuals as a prank months ago, forgetting to switch them back serendipity. As night fell, they huddled in the living room with candles I had left out. Trick birthday candles that relight when you blow them out. Watching them try to figure out why the candles kept reigniting was better than any TV show. "We could cook on the grill," Leo suggested, trying to salvage something from the day. The gas grill was empty. The charcoal grill required actual knowledge of how to start and maintain a fire. They tried anyway, producing what could generously be called charred food. Even the vegetables were somehow burnt on the outside and raw on the inside. Dinner was canned beans again, cold this time, eaten by the flickering light of the trick candles, as rain dripped from various spots in the ceiling and Lucifer paced the porch like a feathered sentinel. "I want to go home," Sarah said quietly. It was the first completely honest thing any of them had said. "This is Leo's home now," Victoria said acidly. His inheritance, right, Leo? Is this what you wanted? Through the infrared camera, I saw my son's face. He looked broken. Good. I just thought, he began. You thought you'd take over your mother's retirement paradise, Chloe finished for him. Turn it into our vacation home, maybe rent it out when we weren't here. You talked about it for months, Ashley added. How much the property was worth, how you could subdivide it. Subdivide it? My 100 acres, our dream. Maggie squeezed my hand as we watched. Are you okay? I'm perfect, I said, and it was true. At 9 p.m., something magical happened. The clouds cleared, revealing a stunning Montana night sky, thousands of stars, the Milky Way visible in all its glory. On the cameras, I watched the family venture onto the porch. Lucifer had finally retreated to the henhouse. For a moment, they all stood in silence, looking at something most of them had never truly seen: a sky without light pollution. Kevin pointed out a constellation Brooke saw her first shooting star. Even Victoria seemed awed by the majesty of it. It's beautiful, Chloe admitted quietly. Dad loved this, Leo said suddenly. He used to send me pictures of the night sky from here. I always just deleted them without looking. The confession hung in the air like another star. He built this place for Mom, he continued. Every fence post, every garden bed. Even when he was sick, he was out here working, and I called it a waste of money. You said worse than that, Victoria reminded him, because of course she would. The moment dissolved. They went back inside to their damp, dark rooms. On the night vision cameras, I watched them toss and turn in the uncomfortable beds, too hot, then too cold. The scratchy blankets providing little comfort. At midnight, the coyotes started howling. Not close enough to be dangerous, but enough to be heard clearly through the broken window. Then the owls joined in. Then Gertrude, still in the Mercedes, discovered the horn. Sunday. One more day. Tomorrow they would break completely, and I would return to reclaim my kingdom. But tonight, just for a moment, under those stars, Leo had remembered his father. That was more than I expected, maybe more than he deserved. Ready for the grand finale? Maggie asked, checking the weather forecast on her phone. I glanced at the forecast for Sunday. Cloudless and a high wind advisory. Oh yes, I said, raising my champagne flute to the screen where my son sat in the dark, finally understanding what he had tried to take from me. We're going to end this in style. The best part? I hadn't even used my secret weapon yet. Tomorrow, they would meet the family of capybaras that frequented the creek behind the property. Sunday dawned with what the local weather service would later call a thermal anomaly. By 6 a.m. it was already 80 degrees. By 7 a.m., when the exhausted group staggered into the kitchen after another rooster serenade, the temperature was pushing 90. Why is it so hot? Ashley moaned, fanning herself with a paper towel. Because, my dear, I had shut off the central air conditioning before I left, leaving only the inadequate ceiling fans that ran on electricity, which they didn't have. The main fuse replacement was in Walter's workshop, behind about 400 pounds of lumber I'd asked Sam to stack there for future projects. From the tablet in the hotel, where Maggie and I were enjoying eggs, Benedict, and perfectly controlled air conditioning, I watched them discover that the refrigerator, without power for over 12 hours, had become a petri dish. The smell when Mark opened it sent everyone fleeing to the porch, where the family of capybaras was waiting. I should explain about the capybaras. They weren't exactly mine. They belonged to the creek and the surrounding woods, but I fed them occasionally, and they had learned that humans meant food. And someone, definitely not Sam under my instructions, might have left a trail of fruit from the creek directly to the front porch. 6 capybaras, 130-pound adults, plus a few young ones. They are docile vegetarian animals, but extremely territorial when it comes to food. And there was food scattered all over the porch. Courtesy of the chickens who had ransacked the trash cans, Richard was the first to make eye contact with the alpha male. Fatal mistake. The animal advanced, not aggressively, but with a firm determination to get what it considered its due. Richard backed away so quickly he tripped over the rocking chair, falling flat on his back. The capybaras, interpreting this as an invitation to share the space, advanced onto the porch. The screaming started again. "What are those things?" Victoria shrieked, climbing onto a chair. "Capybaras," I answered the tablet screen. "Totally harmless. Mostly. The thing about capybaras is they're curious. Extremely curious. And once they decide you're interesting, they follow you everywhere." The group retreated into the house. But the animals just stood at the windows, staring in with their big, dark eyes, occasionally making their signature clicking sounds. Inside, the temperature kept rising. With no power, no AC, and the morning sun turning the windows into magnifying glasses, the house was becoming an oven. "We need ice," Kevin declared, already sweating through his last clean shirt. The ice maker, of course, required electricity. The backup ice in the barn freezer had melted when the power went out. The nearest store was 40 minutes away, and the car situation had not improved. It was then that Jason discovered the well. "There's a hand pump," he announced triumphantly. "At least we can get fresh water." What Jason didn't know was that the well pump hadn't been serviced in years. It worked, technically, but the water came up rust-colored and smelling of sulfur. They tried anyway. Brooke threw up. Even the capybaras shied away from the smell. By noon, the temperature hit 100 degrees. The metal roof was creaking with the expansion. The horses had found the only patch of shade directly under the kitchen window and were contributing their own fragrance to the situation I'm calling 911, Victoria announced, holding her phone. "And tell them what?" Leo retorted, his patience gone. "That it's hot and there are capybaras?" It was then that Lucifer, stressed by the heat and furious at the world in general, discovered he could fly high enough to get in through the broken bedroom window. The sounds from upstairs were a mix of avian fury and human hysteria. Mark came running down with scratches on his arms and feathers in his hand. "That bird attacked me. It attacked me in my sleep." Technically, no one was sleeping, but the drama was appreciated by all. The afternoon brought the wind. The mountain winds are no joke. This one gusted to 30 miles per hour and brought dust, leaves, and what I can only describe as rural debris. The broken window turned into a portal for dust and hay. Within minutes, everything was covered in a fine layer of authentic country. "We're leaving," Chloe announced for the 100th time. "We'll walk to town if we have to. It's 100 degrees, Leo reminded her. "It's over 10 miles. We'll die of heat stroke." It was then they heard the trucks, 3 pickups rumbling up the access road. Loud music, horns blaring. The rescue cavalry? No. It was the Connolly family coming for the Sunday barbecue I'd forgotten I had committed to hosting weeks before 12 people piled out of the trucks, carrying platters, coolers of beer, and a battery-powered karaoke machine. John Connolly, all 250 pounds of him, swept Leo into a bear hug. "You must be Miss Eleanor's boy. She told us all about you. Said you were dying to experience the real country life." "What? Don't you worry. We brought everything. We even brought the mechanical bull in the truck bed. Your mom said you wanted to learn to ride." Maggie and I nearly choked on our mimosas, watching Leo's face as they unloaded an actual mechanical bull and set it up on the front lawn. The capybaras were fascinated. The Connollys, bless them, didn't care about the lack of power. They had generators on their trucks. They didn't care about the heat. They were real ranchers. They didn't even care about the capybaras. Though John's wife, Martha, did remark, "I don't remember Ms. Eleanor mentioning capybaras." What followed were 3 hours of forced socialization. The Connollys were lovely people who assumed Leo's family was equally enthusiastic about rural life. They wanted to hear all about their plans for the property, their opinions on cattle breeding, their favorite crop dusting techniques. Brooke tried to explain she was from Denver, John's son, Johnny, who was actually bigger than his father, took this as an invitation to tell her about all the people he already knew from the Capitol. A story that took 40 minutes and included family photos. Kevin was forced onto the mechanical bull. He lasted 2.7 seconds before being launched into a pile of hay the capybaras had been using as a bathroom. The Connollys cheered as if he'd won a championship. Victoria locked herself in the bathroom to cry, but Martha followed her in, assuming she needed a woman-to-woman chat about the life of a rancher's wife. Through the bathroom camera, I could hear Martha giving detailed advice on calf birthing and the best way to clean chicken guts. The karaoke started at 4 p.m. John insisted everyone participate. Jason's rendition of a Garth Brooks song while the capybaras sang along was particularly memorable. Chloe, forced to sing a Taylor Swift ballad, looked like she was having a nervous breakdown. But the moment that completely broke Leo was when Johnny asked, "So, when's your mom getting back?" "She promised to show me that new cheese-making method. She's in Jackson Hole," Leo said weakly. "Medical issues." "Medical issues?" John boomed. "That woman's tougher than my prize bull. I saw her last week hauling hay bales like they were pillows." "What kind of medical issues?" Leo couldn't answer because that's when Gertrude the sow, protective of her piglets, decided the mechanical bull was a threat. A 400-pound pig charging a mechanical bull while 12 ranchers and 10 city folk ran in panic and capybaras watched with interest is something National Geographic documentaries should really cover. The Connollys finally left at sunset, but not before extracting promises to do this every Sunday and leaving the mechanical bull behind because y'all need the practice. The family sat amidst the wreckage of the lawn as darkness fell. No power, no safe food to eat, covered in dust, sweat, and various animal fluids. "I want my mom," Leo said softly. It was such a childish statement that even Chloe looked at him with something approaching sympathy. "I want my mom," he repeated. "I need to apologize." On the camera, I saw him take out the letter I had left, now crumpled and stained. He read it again, this time aloud. When he got to the part about Walter doing the work during chemo, his voice broke. "We should go," Victoria said. But for the first time, her voice had no venom. "In what car?" Leo laughed bitterly. "We're trapped. Just like Mom wanted." "Maybe," Kevin said carefully. "She wanted you to understand something." "Understand what? That rural life is hell?" "That it's work," Kevin said. "Hard work every day. And she does it alone now." The silence stretched. Even the capybaras had quieted, silhouetted against the darkening sky. "I told her she should sell," Leo admitted. "The day after Dad's funeral, at the reception, I pulled her aside and told her she was too old to take care of this place alone. I said Dad was selfish for wanting to die here. Even Victoria winced at that. I had a buyer lined up, a developer. They would have paid 3 times what they paid for it." "You were trying to sell your mother's house?" Ashley asked. Shocked I thought I was helping. "She's 66, all alone, doing all this." He gestured to the chaos around them. "I thought I was being practical." "You thought you were getting rich," Chloe corrected. The truth hung in the air like the dust, still swirling in the wind. It was then I decided it was time. I called Sam, who had never actually left town final phase. I said simply, "With pleasure, Ms. Eleanor," he replied. 30 minutes later, as the family sat in their dusty, defeated silence, headlights appeared on the driveway, Sam's truck, pulling a trailer with 3 very familiar horses. "Evening, folks," Sam said, tipping his hat. "Got a call from Miss Eleanor, said you might need a hand getting these horses back where they belong." It took them a moment to understand. The horses in the trailer were Shadow, Starlight, and Thunder, which meant the ones that had been terrorizing them. "Whose horses are in the house?" Leo asked weakly. "Oh, those would be the neighbors, Mr. Davison's. He's training them for a documentary on animal intelligence. Ms. Eleanor offered to host the experiment this weekend. Didn't she mention? They're trained to open doors, work latches, even use human toilets if necessary. Though I see they haven't quite mastered that last part." The look on Leo's face was worth every penny of the luxury suite. The capybaras are ours, though, Sam continued cheerfully. Well, they're nature's. They come and go, kind of unpredictable, honestly. As if on cue, the alpha male capybara gave one last grunt before leading his family back toward the creek. Ms. Eleanor will be back tomorrow morning, Sam said, already leading the trained horses onto his trailer. She asked me to say she hopes you enjoyed your authentic rural experience. Oh, and the power is controlled by an app on her phone. She'll switch it back on when she gets home. He left, leaving them in the dark, literally and figuratively, with only the mechanical bull and their shattered assumptions for company. I turned to Maggie, who was recording the whole thing for posterity. "One more sunrise," I said. "One more rooster crow, and then I'm going home." "And do you think they learned anything?" I looked at my son on the screen, still clutching my letter. Surrounded by the wreckage of his entitlement, we're about to find out. Monday morning arrived with what I can only call divine comedy. At exactly 3 a.m., the mechanical bull, which John had forgotten to mention had an automatic timer, suddenly roared to life, complete with flashing lights and loud country music. The chosen song, Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy. Through the infrared cameras, I watched Leo jump from his makeshift bed on the living room floor. He stumbled outside in his boxers to find one of the capybaras who had returned, attempting to ride the mechanical bull. I am not exaggerating. The giant rodent had managed to climb on and was sitting like a furry emperor as the machine bucked gently. "This isn't real," Leo said to no one. "This can't be real," but it was. And when he tried to figure out how to turn the bull off, the cord was under the capybara, who showed no interest in dismounting. The rest of the family gathered on the porch, looking like extras from a post-apocalyptic film, tangled hair, dirty clothes, eyes hollow from lack of sleep. "Is that capybara riding the bull?" Kevin asked in a broken whisper. "Nothing surprises me anymore," Victoria replied. She had aged 10 years in 3 days. The rooster alarm went off at 4:30 a.m., but this time no one even flinched. They were completely broken. As the sun rose, revealing the full devastation of the weekend, they sat on the porch steps in silence. Even Lucifer seemed to sense the defeat and just strutted past without attacking anyone. It was then that I arrived. I timed my entrance perfectly, pulling my immaculate car to a stop just as the morning sun hit the mountains. Maggie had done my hair and makeup at the hotel. I was wearing my best jeans, Walter's favorite plaid shirt, and the turquoise necklace he'd given me on our last anniversary. I looked exactly like what I was, a woman in total control of her domain. The family watched me get out of the car as if they were seeing an apparition. "Good morning," I called out cheerfully, grabbing my weekend bag. "How was your authentic rural experience?" No one answered. They just stared, stunned. I walked past the capybara on the mechanical bull, stepped over the various droppings, and went into my house. Through the open door, they could hear me humming as I started the coffee maker, the good one I'd hidden in the attic. "Mom!" Leo finally managed to speak, following me inside. "Yes, dear. You were in Jackson Hole. The Imperial Mountain Spa has an excellent day spa. Did you know they have a wonderful hot stone massage? Very relaxing." I took out my phone, and with 3 taps, the power came back on. The air conditioning started whirring. The refrigerator began its familiar hum. "You could control it the whole time," he said. It wasn't a question. "I can control a lot of things, Leo. This is my house." The others had crept in, watching our interaction as if it were live theater. "The horses weren't yours." "No. Shadow, Starlight, and Thunder are much better behaved. They're in the stable, where they belong. The capybaras will leave eventually, though that one out there seems to have developed an affection for the mechanical bull. You planned it all." I turned to face him fully, channeling every moment of frustration, disappointment, and pain. "No, Leo, you planned it all. You planned to bully me into leaving. You planned to take over my home. You planned to turn our dream, mine and your father's, into some Airbnb investment. You even looked into my finances and consulted a developer about subdividing the property." Chloe gasped. She hadn't known about that last part. "How did you know?" "Mr. Henderson from the development company is married to Maggie's sister. It's a small world, isn't it? He was very interested to learn you were negotiating the sale of a property that isn't yours. I was trying to help." "No." My voice could have frozen hell over. "You were trying to help yourself to your inheritance, as you called it. Tell me, Leo, what did you inherit from your father?" He was silent. "I'll tell you what he left. He left a mother who loves you despite your greed. He left memories you ignored. He left values you rejected, and he left you the chance to be a better man than you have been." I pulled a document from my bag. "This is the deed to the ranch. As you can see, it's been transferred into a life estate trust. You are not a beneficiary. The ranch will be maintained as a working farm and animal sanctuary in perpetuity. When I die, it will be managed by the Connolly family, who actually understand what it means to love the land." Victoria made a choked sound. Leo went pale. "You disinherited him," Chloe whispered. "I gave him exactly what he gave me. No respect, no consideration, and no claim to what I built." I turned to address the whole group. "You came here uninvited, treating my home like a hotel and me like your employee. You discussed on social media inheriting a ranch before I was even dead. You complained about every aspect of the life Walter and I chose, while you plotted to profit from our work. That's not," Leo began. "I have recordings, Leo. Every phone call where you discussed my supposed decline, every conversation with Chloe about how to manage me, the group chat where you all mocked the ranch and called me a stubborn old woman playing farmer." I held up my tablet, showing them screenshots, their own words damning and cruel. "But what you don't have recorded," I continued, "is your father. 2 weeks before he died, sitting on that porch, making me promise not to let you destroy this place. He knew what you were becoming. It broke his heart, but he knew." Leo sank into a chair. The weight of it all, the shame, the recognition, the loss, finally hitting him. "I love you, Leo," I said more softly. "I will always love you. But love doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean sacrificing my dreams for your greed, and it certainly does not mean letting you turn our sanctuary into a commodity." "What are we supposed to do now?" Victoria asked, apparently still not getting the point. "You are supposed to leave. Sam will be here soon with a tow truck for your cars. The rental agency has been notified you'll be returning the vehicles today." "Yes, I found the keys. The magpies hid them in the roof eaves. But," Chloe started. "But nothing. This is my house. You are no longer welcome here." The silence was deafening. Finally, Kevin of all people spoke up. "We owe Ms. Eleanor an apology, a sincere one." "We're sorry," Ashley added quietly. "This place it's actually beautiful," Brooke finished. "We just couldn't see it." I gave a slight nod of acknowledgement but said nothing. Apologies were just words. Walter always said to watch what people do, not what they say. It took them 3 hours to pack and clean up the worst of the damage. I supervised, sitting on the porch with my coffee, occasionally offering helpful suggestions. "Pig manure needs a special product. It's under the sink. Capybara urine is alkaline. You'll want to scrub harder. That's not mud in the pool filter." Sam arrived with his tow truck and a crew. The cars were recovered, minimally cleaned, and made drivable. The capybara on the mechanical bull was finally persuaded to dismount with an offer of fresh apples. As they were preparing to leave, Leo approached me one last time. "Mom, I know," I interrupted. "You're sorry. You'll do better. You want another chance, right?" He nodded miserably. "Earn it," I said simply. "Not with words, not with grand gestures, with time and genuine change. Your father spent 2 years building this place with his bare hands while he was fighting cancer. You couldn't last a weekend here without complaining. When you can match his commitment to something other than yourself, you call me." How will I know when that is? You'll know. He hugged me then, awkwardly, briefly. It was the first real emotion he'd shown all weekend. They left in a convoy of damaged vehicles and bruised egos. Chloe didn't look back. Victoria was already on the phone, probably complaining to her bridge club. The cousins would have a story no one would believe. But Leo looked back once, and in that look, I saw something that might have been understanding, or maybe just regret. Time would tell. Sam helped me release my real horses back into the pasture. Shadow immediately rolled in his favorite dust patch. Starlight trotted over to the apple tree. Thunder stood at the fence line, surveying his kingdom with satisfaction. "What a weekend, Miss Eleanor," Sam said, grinning. "Worth every penny of the 5-star hotel and your overtime pay. Walter would have loved this." "He sure would have," I agreed, though he probably would have used real skunks instead of just skunk spray. We laughed, standing there in the sun, surrounded by the controlled chaos of a working ranch. That night, I sat on the porch with a glass of Walter's favorite whiskey, watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold. The ranch was quiet, save for the usual sounds, the nicker of horses, the clucking of hens, settling in for the night, the distant croak of frogs in the creek. My phone vibrated. A text from Leo. "The mechanical bull is still on your lawn." I texted back one message. "Consider it a monument to authenticity." Then I turned my phone off, raised my glass in a toast to Walter's memory, and enjoyed the perfect silence of a home defended and a dream preserved. Now, if you enjoyed this story, go ahead and hit subscribe. And tell me in the comments which part made your jaw drop. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos. I don't post here, I'll be waiting for you there.